All right, folks, let me tell you, if you think you've seen every flavor of neighborly nonsense or HOA lunacy, buckle up, pour yourself something strong, because this is the one story I promise will make you laugh, shake your head, and maybe even clutch your wallet a little tighter the next time you see an official-looking letter taped to your door. And hey, while you're here, drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I need to know I'm not the only one with stories this wild, because I swear the stuff I've lived through could make a reality show look like PBS. Now, have you ever been yanked out of a dead sleep at 5 a.m. by an explosion so bone-rattling, so out of nowhere? You honestly think maybe a plane's dropped out of the sky and landed on your roof? Yeah, I've been there. And the best part, the absolute chef's kiss, is that the knuckleheads responsible, well, let's just say they were HOA cops from the subdivision next door, and they managed to go from pretending to be lawmen to actually becoming inmates, all before most people have had their first cup of coffee. The irony. They had no idea the county sheriff himself was asleep in my guest room just 50 yards away from the spot where they decided to play Wile E. Coyote with my ranch gate, and what turned out to be a homemade bomb. I know, you couldn't write this stuff. So here's the lay of the land. My family's had the Barm Ranch for 5 generations, over a century's worth of sweat and stories tucked up against the foothills of the Blackwood Mountains. We raise cattle, we grow hay, we mind our own business. And if you ever asked me what I thought paradise looked like, I'd have just pointed out over those fields and let you hear the quiet. Or at least it was quiet until about 10 years back, when a luxury subdivision called Whispering Pines started mushrooming up on our eastern fence line. All pastel houses jammed together with lawns so green and neat, you'd think there was a prize for the best impersonation of a golf course. And of course they came with that ancient curse, a homeowners association. It started with the usual gripes. Letters about manure smells, I call that honest living. Complaints about cows mooing at dawn. Even one pearl-clutching note about the visual pollution of my tractor, which is old enough to have its own zip code, and by the way is still running. I tried to be a good neighbor, even sat through a couple of those early HOA meetings where I explained as gently as I could that a ranch is a ranch, not Disneyland. But you'd have thought I was speaking ancient Greek. Especially to their ringleader, Arthur Abernathy, the self-declared president of Whispering Pines, a guy who always looked like he'd just walked off the cover of a golfing magazine, shirts 2 sizes too small, and a face that twisted into a sneer anytime he looked at a pair of boots. He called their little beige patch the Riviera of the Rockies. I mean, come on. Soon it escalated. Notes stuck on the fence, demands to move water troughs, threats over weeds, which, by the way, were wildflowers. The letters got more aggressive, and I started saving them all in a folder labeled Abernathy's Folly. I figured he was all talk. I was wrong. The man decided his HOA needed its own private security. Not just a bored guard in a folding chair, no, but full-on tactical cosplayers strutting around in modified golf carts decked out to look like police cruisers. He hired 2 guys who looked like they'd failed out of police academy and paintball league alike, Jenkins and Miller, though everyone quickly started calling them Rambo and Terminator. I'm telling you, if you've ever seen a man so red-faced and serious about a plastic badge, you'd know Jenkins' belt weighed down with fake gear-mirrored sunglasses at dawn. Miller barely spoke, but he could stare a hole through concrete. Their patrols soon started focusing on my property. They'd park by the fence and watch the cows scribbling in little notebooks, sometimes yelling through a megaphone about bovine loitering. I wish I was making this up. Abernathy, meanwhile, kept ramping up. Now there were official-looking citations for things like unauthorized agricultural odors and failure to maintain aesthetic harmony. My ranch, mind you, was never in their HOA, never subject to their rules, but Abernathy must have figured if he acted like he had authority, he'd get his way. Each new letter got added to my file or used to start the burn barrel. But I got smart, put up cameras, told my hands to film any encounters, and called my old buddy Ben Carter, a property lawyer, who started laughing so hard I thought he'd choke. Just document everything Ben said. Guys like this, they always hang themselves with their own rope. First direct showdown came when I was riding the fence line on my ATV deep on my side of the property. Rambo and Terminator come roaring up in their golf cart lights, flashing Jenkins, huffing and puffing, hand on his toy taser. "This is restricted access," he barked. I just looked at him and said, Says who? Miller chimes in, the Whispering Pines Security Department. I told them as politely as I could that they were trespassing and that if they didn't skedaddle, I'd call the real sheriff. They muttered and retreated. I figured, well, maybe that's the end of it. Nope. Next week, I get a letter from some budget law firm threatening to sue unless I remove my ranch gate, my own gate, because it's apparently encroaching on a historic access easement and violating aesthetic code. Pure fantasy. My deed was ironclad. Ben wrote them back nice and legal, told them to take a hike, sent it certified mail. Abernathy signed for it. The deadline came and went. My gate stayed right where it was. I honestly thought surely they'll drop it now. I didn't account for the stupidity of men with too much time and too little sense. One quiet week later, after the letter, things seemed calm. Too calm. Even my ranch hand Billy said the HOA cops were parked across from our gate with binoculars just watching. I got that crawling feeling you get before a tornado. About that time, Sheriff Jim Thompson, my old football buddy, calls up, wants a break from the city, asks to crash at my place for a quiet weekend. Come on out, I say. We'll fish, drink some tea, nothing but peace. That turned out to be the biggest lie I ever told a man. Jim shows up. Friday, kicks back on the porch, listens to the latest Abernathy tales, shakes his head, just says, keep documenting. These guys will hang themselves. We go to bed Jim in the guest room right up front with a perfect view of the gate. I figure if Abernathy's crew has an ounce of sense, they'll lay low. Well, turns out I gave them way too much credit. At 4:58 in the morning, the world ends with a bang. The house shudders. Picture frames hit the floor. I bolt out of bed, boots barely on. Jim's already in the hall, eyes wide. What the hell was that? He barks back in full sheriff mode. We race out the door, flashlights sweeping the darkness, the air thick with smoke and something burning. Down at the gate, all I see is a flicker of orange and the twisted wreck of wood and steel. My gate is gone, obliterated. Standing next to the mess are two familiar figures, their tactical vests glowing in the firelight. Rambo and Terminator. Rambo's got something in his hand, a detonator. They're grinning. And then Jim steps out, still in pajama bottoms, badge on his shirt, service, weapon drawn, county sheriff hands up. The look on those two idiots' faces, you couldn't buy that kind of panic. Rambo's mouth opens and shuts. Sheriff. What are you doing here, he manages. Terminator's frozen like a deer in headlights. Jim's not messing around. What are you two doing blowing up private property with an explosive at 5 in the morning? Rambo starts sputtering about official HOA business and Abernathy's orders, but Jim just shuts it down. You're under arrest for malicious destruction of property, illegal use of explosives, reckless endangerment, and whatever else I think up on the way to jail. Turn around. Click, click, 2 pairs of handcuffs music to my ears. The deputies show up, quick tape off the scene. Bomb squad comes out and finds out these morons used commercial-grade blasting agents they bought somewhere shady. They could have killed me, Jim, or anyone else unlucky enough to be in the wrong place. When Rambo realizes just how much trouble they're in, he starts singing Quick as You Please, blaming Abernathy for masterminding the whole thing, showing text messages the works. Terminator stays quiet, but the evidence is all there. And then comes the best part. The deputies go knock on Abernathy's mansion at sunrise, catch him in his silk pajamas, try to bluster and threaten, but real cops don't care about HOA titles. They arrest him in front of the whole neighborhood. The man's face goes from red to white faster than you'd think possible. His cronies come out in their workout gear, jaws on the ground. After that, it was open and shut. Ben sues everybody, Abernathy, the HOA, the 2 failed commandos. Their insurance company folds, writes a big fat check to cover a new, bigger, better gate and a hefty sum for damages. The HOA gets dissolved, the golf cart is sold for scrap, and the new board actually comes. To me, apologizes, asks for advice about landscaping that doesn't involve lawsuits or explosives. Funny how fast folks can change their tune. Jim finally gets his quiet weekend, well, mostly. Now his wife thinks my ranch is a war zone, but he laughs it off. And me, I built my new gate strong enough to stop a tank. Whispering Pines is a whole lot quieter these days. Abernathy, Rambo, and Terminator all got real sentences, no more playing sheriff, no more HOA armies. Just a lesson burned in deeper than my old ranch brand. Some folks can't tell the difference between authority and actual law until it bites them in the rear. So tell me, what's the wildest HOA or neighbor story you've ever heard? Hit the comments. Let's swap some tales about what justice really looks like when it finally comes home.